New construction home sales are falling off the edge of a cliff here in Dallas, but don't let the FOMO get to you. Before you let any money change hands with a new construction deposit, you need to watch this video. Well, hello, I'm Wendy Pinnell, and today we're talking about new construction deposits and specifically how you will just about never get those deposits back when buying a new construction home. All right, well, let me tell you why. We'll start by taking a step back for a second so we can really understand what our rights are as a buyer. You may be thinking your rights as a buyer should be the same from sale to sale so long as you're in the same state, right? The Texas real estate law hasn't changed, so why should my rights change, right? Well, sorry, but that's just not the case. Now let's talk about why. New construction and pre-owned home sales are very different when it comes to buyer rights, and not in a good way. All right, now why is that? Well, I'll show you. Where do you find your rights as a buyer? Okay, you're gonna find them in the contract. When buying a pre-owned home, the contract forms are drafted by the state and meant to protect both the buyer and seller equally. Almost everything is negotiable and both parties must agree on the terms. On the other end of the spectrum, those ridiculously long and boring contracts you have to sign when buying new construction are written by the builder's attorney, and they're written from one overly wordy page to the next, entirely to benefit the builder and only the builder. I mean, think about like driving into a used car lot. The salesperson is super nice and they might even offer you a few incentives or discounts to make the sale, but at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? The sale. And what do we know about salespeople? Well, it's all about the seller, or in our case, the builder. This makes a huge difference in how protected your rights are. Oh, and spoiler alert, with new construction, they're not very protected at all. You no longer have the state working to protect the rights of both sides. Okay. Now that we've covered how they're written, let's talk about some of the content of these contracts. Now, many of you who have only bought pre-owned homes don't even know what this whole deposit thing is that I'm talking about, and for a good reason. With pre-owned homes, you don't put down a deposit like with new construction. You put down earnest money, all right? You get to pick the amount. You get to pick the contingencies that allow it to be returned to you, and then the seller decides if he'll agree. So you pre-owned buyers don't know how good you have it. With new construction, there's only a deposit. Rarely is there earnest money. The builder picks the deposit amount, when and how it will be paid, and the contingencies that would allow it to be returned. Oh, and there are no negotiations on how the contract's written. The attorney designed it and you don't get to change it. Plus, get this, some builders even require you to pay the deposit before they'll even let you go under contract. All right, Centex homes are this way. Most builders, though, will require the deposit to be paid simultaneously with going under contract or within 24 hours of going under contract. On top of all that, there's another huge and very important difference that you really need to understand. Earnest money with pre-owned sales is deposited with a neutral third party, the title company. Now, the title company, they don't represent the buyer or the seller. They are completely neutral. And this means both parties must agree in order to release the earnest money from title back to either party. In addition, the house can't go back on the market until the issue is resolved. So buyers hold a huge advantage here. I mean, even when the seller should be able to keep the earnest money, if the buyer refuses to agree, he can essentially strong-arm the seller into returning it just so the seller can finally move on with selling his house. So the buyer has a tremendous amount of leverage because of where the money's being held. The seller can't get to it unless the buyer agrees to let him based on the terms of the contract. And here's where those of you interested in new construction seriously need to listen up. With new construction, you get none of that leverage. The deposit goes directly to the builder. There's no neutral party holding your deposit. So not only does the builder pick the amount and when and how it'll be paid, but now they get to put your money that should be refundable, right? They put it into their bank account. All right, so they literally get all of the advantages. Okay, so the builder now has your deposit instead of a neutral third party. And probably not your favorite thing to hear. But then again, why should you be worried about not getting your deposit back, all right? They still have to refund it unless you break the contract, right? Well, technically, yes. But remember, the builder who has your deposit in his account is also the builder that wrote the contingencies as to how you would get your deposit back. And you guessed it, the ways you can get your deposit back are really small, and the reasons they can keep your deposit are huge. So big surprise there, right? Well, let's walk through some of these. All right, but first, let me explain how the contracts explain these contingencies. All right, builder contracts will often refer to losing your deposit due to acts of default, okay? Now, basically, this means you broke the contract. Then throughout the contract, they'll say, this or that, example is an act of default. The verbiage might read something like this clause from Belhaven's contract, okay, paragraph 9b. Upon occurrence of an act of default by purchaser, builder may, in builder's sole and absolute discretion, without notice, discontinue performance of this contract, terminate the contract, and retain the initial cash payment and any additional cash payment. I'll let Antares Homes explain the basis of what Belhaven is talking about through paragraph 19 of the Antares contract. It reads, if builder is in default under the contract, seller may terminate this contract and retain all deposit money. So what actually are these so-called acts of default that could potentially cause you to lose thousands of dollars? Well, let's take a look at some of the major items on an unfortunately very long list of things that the builder feels are worthy of keeping your deposit. Now, one serious default is not obtaining financing. Yeah, you heard me right. Not getting approved for a loan is considered an act of default. With pre-owned homes, you can decide how long you can be protected to arrange for your financing. But with new construction, they decide how long they'll let you get your financing in order and how much of your deposit they'll return if your financing doesn't come through. Here's a couple of examples from different builders' contracts. Perry Home says, purchaser may terminate this contract and receive a refund of the earnest money minus a termination fee to seller of 50% of the earnest money only if purchaser fails to qualify for financing and notifies seller of same in writing within 14 days after the date of this contract. Pretty specific terms you got to stick to there. Now, Belhaven in paragraph 4D says, if purchaser desires to obtain financing for any portion of the total sales price, purchaser must furnish builder with reasonable evidence of financial arrangements to pay the total sales price within 15 days of the accepted date of this contract. Failure to provide reasonable evidence within the allotted time shall be an act of default. Now, obviously, some builders are more brutal about the failure to obtain financing than others, okay, like, for example, Belhaven. But then we have D.R. Horton. In paragraph 3A of their contract, they are potentially a bit more gracious. Of course, it completely rests on their sole discretion. Their contract reads like this. If at any time after 30 days from the contract date, buyer is unable to provide evidence of approval for the loan as determined in seller's sole discretion, seller will have the right to cancel this contract. If seller cancels the contract, and in its sole and absolute discretion determines that buyer used best efforts but was unable to obtain approval for the loan, seller will refund the deposit. Well, let's hope we stay in D.R. Horton's good graces, right? Another act of default found in new construction contracts is interfering with the builder or builder crew. Turns out this one is actually super popular with builder contracts. Now, what exactly does that mean? All right, well, listen to these examples from actual contracts. When referring to interfering with workers at the home, Normandy Homes says in paragraph 8 of their contract, purchaser or purchaser's agents or representatives unreasonably delay or unreasonably interfere with the construction process. All right, so that's pretty vague there, Normandy, but Belhaven is almost word for word verbatim on that. They say purchaser or purchaser's agents or representatives unreasonably delay or unreasonably interfere with the builder in the execution of the work. Now, Antares Homes has quite a bit more to say. Okay, this is what they say. Notwithstanding the type or format or buyer's choices of mortgage, seller shall have exclusive control over the direction and supervision of work, and buyer agrees not to issue any instructions or otherwise interfere with the same. Buyer shall not negotiate for additional work with seller's employees, representatives, subcontractors, engage other vendors or subcontractors, or perform any work whatsoever on the home or home site prior to closing. Failure to adhere to this restriction will constitute a material breach of this contract and afford seller all remedies for such under this contract. And finally, D.R. Horton comes in with the perfect mixture, okay? Clear and concise, which we love, right? All right, they say, buyer will not communicate with seller's subcontractors regarding any aspect of this work. If buyer violates this subsection, seller's warranties will be void, and seller will be entitled to cancel this contract and seek all available remedies. All right, are you getting nervous about accidentally falling into a default yet? Well, wait till you hear this next one that could definitely get you. You ready for this? Saying something bad on social media. All right, that's right. You could lose your deposit over the wrong social media post. Okay, check this out. What Normandy Homes has to say about it in paragraph 8 of their contract, it's not really horribly unreasonable. They say the purchaser cannot publicly disparage or defame seller, including on social media or the internet. But some builders cover a lot more ground. Okay, Belhaven in paragraph 11C, okay, they say the parties agree that any dispute related to this contract and or any termination related to this contract shall be held in strict confidence between the parties and will not be publicized or disclosed in any manner whatsoever. But they're not done yet, all right? They continue. In the event of termination of this contract, purchaser shall not make or distribute any negative or disparaging comments or materials to any potential customers of builder or otherwise negatively interfere in any manner with builder's marketing and sale of homes in any manner. Moving on, here's another big no-no in new construction contracts: not meeting any of the milestone meetings. All right, you'll have these meetings throughout the building process to go over the design center, structural designs, final walkthrough, okay, we're talking that sort of thing. Belhaven shares how it's an act of default if the purchaser fails to participate in the final walkthrough inspection within 5 days of notice from builder as provided in this contract. Normandy Homes concurs with Belhaven, this time in paragraph 8. It is an act of default if the purchaser fails to participate in the pre-closing meeting. Now, this one can be pretty scary when builders don't communicate well. All right, now for example, we've had a sales consultant schedule a virtual meeting with one of our buyers. And when I say virtual, I mean the meeting invitation sent out actually read virtual. Well, it turns out it was not only meant to be in person, but it was also supposed to take place at the lot where the home was being built. Now, unfortunately, the consultant made a mistake when they were setting up this meeting, and they didn't share anything about the specific location of the meeting. Luckily, we were able to intervene on the mix-up, and no one was found to be in default. Okay, are you feeling frustrated with new construction builders yet? Well, take a deep breath because we're not done yet, okay? You'll also be in default if you don't close on time. With pre-owned homes, you get to decide how long you have, and generally you're protected if there's a delay. With new construction homes, if your contract is dependent on selling your current home, first they're going to tell you when you have to have your home listed and when you have to be under contract with a buyer for your current home. And of course, if it doesn't sell, you could lose your deposit. Belhaven chimes in again on this one, saying purchaser's failure to close the purchase of the property on the designated closing date constitutes a default by purchaser under this contract. Normandy Homes says in paragraph 8 of their contract, events of default by purchaser include if purchaser fails to close on the closing date. And D.R. Horton in paragraph 9 reads this way: if buyer does not close the purchase of the property on or before the closing date, buyer understands and agrees that seller shall have the right to terminate this contract. Any other buyers out there feel like they actually don't understand and agree? I'm sure you're starting to get the picture now though. All right, now, yet another act of default is if the home doesn't appraise for enough. And you're exactly right to be wondering. You could also lose your deposit for an appraisal shortage. Builders are not going to help you out with any appraisal shortage, and many won't even let you out of the contract. Belhaven Homes' contract says in paragraph 4F, purchaser shall not be entitled to terminate the contract, recover any sums paid under this contract, or receive any adjustment to total sales price or similar concession should the final improvements appraise for less than the total sales price. And Normandy Homes has similar terms in paragraph 2. In some instances, the appraised value of the real estate may be lower than the purchase price. Purchaser understands, acknowledges, and agrees that seller will not reduce the purchase price or contribute in any way to an appraisal shortage of the real estate. Now, before you judge new construction builders too much, you should know that some builders aren't even pretending to give you your deposit back with the whole acts of default excuse. Some builders were never going to give the deposit back at all. It's just non-refundable from the very beginning. Listen to this from the Belhaven Homes contract, paragraph 4B. Okay, they say the parties acknowledge that the initial cash payment and any additional cash payment as hereinafter described shall not be deemed to be earnest money, as that term is commonly used, regardless of any designation on the check provided by purchaser or any handwritten notes or comments added to the contract. The initial cash payment and any additional cash payments will be non-refundable. After so many terms like this, you might be wondering why anyone would ever want to buy new construction with risks like this. Well, the truth of the matter is that this is just what Dallas has right now. Over 20% of all homes sold are new construction in Dallas because that's where the inventory is. Still, if you're going to buy new construction, you need to be prepared for the pitfalls. All right, you might start by watching this video here. In the meantime, Wendy out.